Thank you. For everyone's to know that the Mayor is unwell today, so I'm sitting in the chair. I'll be conducting the meeting today. So I welcome all councillors and acknowledge the country. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledge the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. We do have an apology from Mayor Young. In attendance we have our General Manager Greg Ingham, Jasmine Murray, Peter Porch, Elise Blaine, Alex Woodward and Adrian O'Leary. There are no late reports, and I now ask councillors to indicate whether you have any interest personally or by a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or any conflict as described in the Councillors' Code of Conduct for Councillors in any item of the agenda. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I've declared an interest in agenda item 2.1 in the confidential agenda.
So we go on to item 2, 2.1, Ordinary Meeting of Council, 23rd of November 2021. There is a recommendation. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Browning.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday the 23rd of November 2021 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Breeny. Any discussion? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. 2.2, Special Meeting of Council, 30th of November 2021. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Robinson.
That the minutes of the special meeting of council held on Tuesday 30th of November 2021 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Greenie. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 2.2, date and purpose of workshops. It's all there in black and white, and there is a recommendation at the bottom of the page. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council notes the information.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Arnold. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. So we come to item 3 on the agenda, which is public question time. We have no questions on notice, but we do have a question from the floor from Mr. Wayne Murray. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm wondering whether there has been an update to the 2020-2021 profit and loss statement pertaining to the Prosser Plains Raw Water Scheme. And if so, I would ask that updated documents of this sort be published on the web alongside the original document, so that it doesn't involve a long chain of seeking to try and find these things, not just for that document, but for any documents that are similarly updated or there's addenda to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. General Manager?
I believe the updated Prosser Raw Water Scheme was updated at the last budget review. And certainly I'll take on board your comments in regards to providing the original one on the website as well.
Thank you. And just a follow-up on that. Is the council actively seeking any other purchases of the products from this, or the product, I should say, from this particular scheme?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a fair bit of discussion going on around the scheme and options for for the scheme going forward. I'd have to say that some of that would be commercially confident at this stage, and I wouldn't be prepared to discuss it, but certainly, as you may be aware, there's a development proposal for the Louisville Point Peninsula, and there's ongoing discussions with those developers as to water supply from the scheme.
Thank you.
Mario, I did note, councillors, that Mr Heck has entered the room. Do you have a question today, Mr Heck?
I'd love to. Well, I do actually. Apologies for being late. The properties that are listed in the attachments for net valuations of 135,000, but that's only if they are fully serviced. I have a plan here that actually has those sites serviced, and there's only a number of them that are actually where it's proposed for water, but the sewerage and everything is in existence. Is the valuations that we're placing on it at 375 as a total, that's a complete nonsense, isn't it?
Mr Heck, I presume you were referring to the
Halsell,
Spencer Street
Halsell,
development?
yes.
Yep. I may just defer to Director of Planning and Development.
Commiserations, Alex.
We'll
Mr.
take
Heck,
that
we will
question
take
on
that
notice.
notice on that question on notice. Thank you. So we'll move on now to the planning. Item 4, under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulation 2015, that I hereby declare that Council is now acting as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for Section 4 of this agenda. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Breeny?
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I move that pursuant to Section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, subdivision application 2021 slash...
Sorry. We need to
Just to
move into
open.
planning.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I need a motion to do that. Councillor Brown?
I move that council now act as a planning authority at 2:10 p.m.
2:10?
Yep.
Thank you. And a seconder for that? Councillor Robinson? Councillor Brenny, do you still wish to move that motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
So there is a recommendation on page 24. So did you want to do that now, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just finding the page after missing
Oh,
the
page
previous one.
24.
Thank you.
Before you go along, just to note that Peter Cooney has just entered the room. Thank you. 4.1, yes.
I move that pursuant to Section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, subdivision application 2021/26 be approved for reasons outlined in the officer's report, subject to conditions 1 through to 1 and the advice that follows.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Simons? Councillor Brenny, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor. At a recent workshop, this was explained to us very carefully, some of the issues that were involved, including representations. My taking of the representations seemed to gel quite closely with the report writer. I believe that there may be some issues in relation to matters that have been dealt with in the conditions, and I find that I'm able to support this based on the fact that the conditions are quite substantial, and that even the issues that seem to be contentious were within, for example, width of access way, 2, 3 internal lots, etc., seem to be naturally covered by current standards. So I'll be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Simons, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just to concur with Councillor Breening, it's a good project for Bishonow and will be well received.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? For the motion? No? So that being the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, 4.2, I'm going to hand over to the General Manager for that one, please.
So, Councillors, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor 4.2 on the agenda, and you will recall Council discussed this at a previous workshop as well. 50 Harvey's Farm Road, that application has been withdrawn, and we've received that notification in writing.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to page 46. Under the Regulations 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, that I hereby declare that the Council is no longer acting as a planning authority under the provisions of Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for Section 4 of this agenda. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Breen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council no longer acts as a planning authority at 2:14.
Councillor Arnold. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we move over now to page 47, 5.1 of the financial reports. There is a recommendation at the bottom of the page. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
I move the Council receives and notes the financial reports as attached to this report for the period ended 30th November 2021.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, just briefly, just to thank the writer of the report. I've read all of the financials and I'm satisfied with everything that I can see in there. I have no questions on any item within it. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Breen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a note on page with regard to, I suppose you call it a graph or a graphic, on page 53, the work request categories. It seems that the most work requests involve storm water. Have I gone too far?
Yes.
Sorry. I'm not keeping up today. Not a good day.
With, on item 5.1, financial report.
Yeah. Aha, I jumped the page. Thank you.
So anyone else wish to speak? For or against? No? Would that be the case, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Moving on to section 6.1, minutes of the Bishonow Memorial Hall Committee meeting 9th of November 2021. There is a recommendation at the bottom of the page of page 50. Can I have a motion? Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will move that the minutes of the Bishonow Memorial Hall Committee meeting held on the 9th of November 2021 be received, and that the appointment of Kathleen Davis as Secretary to the committee be approved.
Can I have a seconder? Councillor Simons. Do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Arnold.
No, I think the only thing that I would like to say is thank you to Ms Davis for taking on the role of secretary. It's always difficult to find volunteers, and it's very pleasing to see that someone's prepared to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Simons?
Just echo Councillor Arnold's words there, and it's a really good committee at the moment with quite a dynamic group that's really picked the whole committee up and got the whole running quite well. Just a housekeeping note, it's Tuesday the 9th of November, not Monday, the meeting.
Okay.
That was on our council meeting day.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? No? That be the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, information reports. 7.1, Director Works and Infrastructure, Mr Peter Porch. There is a quite detailed report as per usual, and there is a recommendation on page 54 of the agenda in Councillor Breening.
Council notes the information.
Seconder for that, Councillor Browning. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Breening? Is this the one where you've spoken?
This is the one I was raising before.
Right.
On page 53, the graphic there shows that the most requests, and I'm presuming that it's work requests received, deals with stormwater. It shows how important stormwater is in accordance with the other things. It eclipses everything by double except maybe trees and is it roadside slashing? Yes. The rest pale to insignificance, including road condition, which is very interesting. The fact that stormwater seems to be a major issue. We've just got to keep on top of that. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the report?
Yes, just briefly, Deputy Mayor. Just to mention that I'm very impressed with the quality of these reports. You know, there's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of specific detail about what's actually going on, and it makes it easy for me as a councillor to, you know, talk about things with the general community. So that's very pleasing.
Yep. Echoed around the room, Councillor Robinson. If I may, councillors, I have a question to Mr Porch through the General Manager here. It's a simple one. We're just looking for the microphone. Thank you. On page 53, it says design for Tribunna School crossing 99%, confirming details with school representatives prior to the quotation. I'm really happy to see this moving quite along. It's been a long time and a good deal of time in coming. Will this be completed, ready for the 2022 school year?
Subject to just touching base with the school, I had initial feedback to say yes, they were quite satisfied with the design, but again it's describing to them what the pictures mean and what the drawing means, so that there is good understanding of yes, this is what's going to be constructed. And I doubt very much, given loads on contractors and stuff, I doubt very much that it will be constructed before the beginning of the school year, but we'll certainly make it. It's not a large job, won't take a lot of time, and we'd look to get it done as soon as we can within the new calendar year.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, any more discussion on the report? If that be the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you very much. We're moving on now to 7.2, Manager of Building and Marine Infrastructure, Mr Adrian O'Leary. Again, another good report. There is a recommendation on page 56. Councillor Churchill.
Move that council notes the information.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Arnold. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you. It's a good report, and thanks for that, Adrian. It's good to see that the Buckland Hall, there's two projects on the Buckland Hall, isn't there?
It's one project, but it's one project, but funded by two different grant authorities.
Okay.
Yeah.
and it's good to see that one underway. It seems like a long time since that was first initiated.
It has been, yes.
And it's nice to know that the Coles Bay Hall annex looks like it might be moving into more of a possibility after, 10 years or something like that?
Yes, it's been quite a few years. We've got to a point now where the construction design drawings have been done. We've got depreciation values of funding for the annex, but of course, because the construction design goes beyond the replacement value of the existing annex, the next stage is to apply for community grant fund to match our we have, which is 180,000, which will then get us into the ballpark figure to be able to construct what is on the plan.
So 360 will around about do that?
Hopefully. So we're just quantifying it at the moment. We're getting quantities on the pricing from builders, because even though we can do it through the books and work out the quantities of what it should cost, at the moment builders being hard to get, I thought the best way is to actually get quotes from local builders to see if they were to win the job, how much it would cost. So that's currently going through that process, and with Christmas, I'm not getting a lot of feedback at the moment.
Sure. And I see there's still 36 people on your waiting list for the marina.
Marina, yes, there is.
There's obviously quite a bit of demand there for the berths.
Yes, that's the people that go on the list. I actually get regular calls for a berth, and quite regularly people, when I say to them we have a waiting list, do you want to go on the list? There is regularly people that'll say no, don't bother. They're wanting a berth now. A lot of the demand is always as we get towards Christmas, summer, they're trying to secure a berth for that 3-month window. Probably a lot of the times they're people that have got a berth down south and they just want to try and organise a time on the East Coast. So, yep.
Thank you. And the piles that have just gone in, the 6 stern piles.
Yes.
What part of, there was $100,000 allocated to that, which was ratepayer money, not grant money.
Yes, right.
How's that, does it come somewhere close to the number? Are we
Oh, well, a lot less at the moment. So we allocated $100,000 on the premise that we might have to replace. I've worked on the basis of having to replace up to 10. We've only have to replace 6. The others have been checked and they've checked out okay. I have got a couple of, as well as the piles, a couple of the access gangways needed to be fixed up. So that's currently happening, but well within the 100,000. The 6 piles, which included fixing up an access for one of the berths, I think from memory is 55,000. And I've got 2 other accesses to fix up, so I should well and truly come under budget for that, yeah.
Thanks for the explanation, and sorry for all the questions.
That's all right.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So, Councillor Bruni?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor and General Manager, if I could ask Mr. O'Leary if he could just give us a brief update of what might be happening at the Swansea boat ramp. There's been quite a lot of interest as to whether or not there's going to be, I think a dredge was rumoured to be coming in to get it open for Christmas, and people are very toey about trying to find out if that's the case.
Through the Mayor, I actually contacted MAST last week in preparation for today's meeting on the boat, and also actually in preparation for Community Connect meetings, to see what the update from MAST was, and I did ask for them to give me some written information of what was happening with the Swansea boat ramp. I haven't received that written information, but the verbal information I did receive was that they had removed some of the whaler boards at the existing ramp, which had moved some of the sand. The consensus I got from the consulting person from MAST, which is Justin Foster, was they didn't see any benefit of dredging, because as soon as they dredge, the sand silts back up again. They informed me that some small vessels were still using the boat ramp, and that the Swansea boat ramp just falls under the the basis of all the other boat ramps in the state, that you go with the weather conditions and the tides as to whether the ramp will be suitable. That's what they've told me.
Thank you.
I was about, thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So is there any other discussion on the report? That being the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're on to 8.5, officers' report. Eight. Officers' report requiring a decision. 8.1, small community grant for Mariah Voices, and there is a recommendation on page 58. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll move that Council approve the application for small grant funding of $1,000 for Mariah Voices.
Anyone, seconder? Councillor Browning? Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Arnold?
No, not really, Deputy Mayor, other than to say Mariah Voices have been providing some wonderful support to other community groups in terms of their Remembrance Day services and the like, and I think it behoves this council to support them in this matter.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? No? That being said, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So we've got 8.2 now, Coles Bay Marina Service, Coles Bay Maintenance Service Contract. There's a recommendation on page 61. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Simons.
Council award the contract for Coles Bay Maintenance Services to Leave It To Me, mowing, maintenance and cleaning.
Thank you. A seconder for that, Councillor Robinson. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Simons?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Other than it's just a good report from our officer, and it all seems to make good sense as that is what we would do.
Yep. Anyone against? For? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So we're going on to 8.3. Now, councillors, we did have a revised recommendation sent out to us, and it is on page 65. So can I have a motion, please? Councillor Breeny.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council 1 note the Council report and officers' comments, specifically that if Council votes in the affirmative of the officers' recommendation, this will overturn the decision of 256/20 made on 28 July 2020, being the land will be sold directly to the Director of Housing instead of being transferred to the Centre Care Evolve for the servicing of lots CT 25 to 28/55156. And 2, resolve to overturn decision 256/20 made at the 28 July 2020 Ordinary Council meeting to authorise the Acting General Manager to develop a contract to transfer lots CT 62 to 72/55156 and CT 98/55156 to Centre Care Evolve Housing for a proposed unit development in return for development of lots CT 25 to 28/55156 into fully serviced, in brackets, power, water and sewer, close brackets, lots with road access in Spencer Street formed to a standard acceptable by Council's engineer from the Boyle Street intersection past the access to lot 28, with a condition that the transfer of ownership being subject to the development application for the community housing units being approved. If Council votes in the affirmative, that Council 3 resolve to direct the General Manager to develop a contract...
Councillor Breeny?
Yes, I'll have to close there.
Yeah, close there on that. So we're going to deal with the point 1 and 2.
1 and 2, thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder to that motion, please? Councillor Robinson. Wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'll be supporting this motion on 2 counts. First of all, the important one to me is that the resultant lots that are assumed to be disposed will be in the hands of State Housing, or whatever the State Director of Housing, thank you, and that it seems to resolve one of the 2 major issues that were contentious. It doesn't solve one of them. That was a planning issue, and that was dealt with in the planning authority in previous meeting. But it does resolve the issue of value that council is gaining from that land disposal, if you like. There's been substantial discussion about it at workshop. The pros and cons of leaving it as it is and changing it to disposal in this manner has convinced me that I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a mental blank then. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just very briefly, concurring with what Councillor Breeny has said, but also to me it appears now we've got a better outcome for council and the community in getting the $375,000 up front and not having to rely on the developer to further develop the blocks. So I think for us it's a simpler, better financial outcome, not income. And income, it's both.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. I have just had I'll hand it over to our General Manager, actually.
So, just going back to the question that was raised on the same item by Mr. John Heck, we can deal with it at this stage, and I'll just hand over to the Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you, General Manager, and through you, Mayor. So Mr. Heck's question was in regards to the lots being serviced. So that is correct, that there is water and sewer to the lots themselves. The valuation was based on the fact that to fully service the blocks, so if you were to sell those, they would have to be supplied with power, curb and channel, and the road and alike. So that would be the difference in the price. So hence the reason they're obviously reduced as unserviced.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm in a little bit of this whole thing's been quite perplexing, really, because the motion actually states that this will overturn decision 25620 made on the 28th of July 2020, being the land will be sold directly to the Director of Housing. Now, I don't think that assumption can be made in a motion. I don't think that's me doing that. Anyway, I don't have a problem with overturning the decision. Absolutely have no problem at all with overturning the decision. What I have a problem with is that the assumptions being made that part 3 of this recommendation is going to pass in the affirmative. So I'm a little bit confused about how to actually vote. I want to vote for the motion to overturn it, because that will then put the whole matter back to a vote by council. But I'm not sure. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not very cohesive in relation to this matter because it is so confusing.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Are you able to answer Councillor Arnold? Mr. Woodward?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You can remove part of that motion if you wish to put up an alternate motion, if you're concerned about the fact, the last sentence. So the part two of the motion says to resolve. You could simply, if you wished to make an alternate motion, which would just be simply note the council's report, and if council votes in the affirmative of the officer's recommendation, this will overturn the decision of 25620 made on 20 June 2020, and you can just leave it at that. And then you can deal with the next matter at the following motion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. If I may, Deputy Mayor. Why is that happening? I can see where the Director of Planning is coming from now, and on that basis, I would move an amendment to the motion that council note the council report and officers' comments, specifically that if council votes in the affirmative of the officer's recommendation, this will overturn decision 25620 made on the 28th of July 2020. Part two, and then part two will be council resolved to overturn decision 25620 made at the 28th July 2020 ordinary council meeting to authorise the acting general manager to develop a contract to transfer lots CT 6272/55156 and CT 98/55156 to Centre Kirriwell Housing for a proposed unit development in return for development of lots CT 25-28/55156 into fully serviced power, water and sewer lots with road access in Spencer Street formed to a standard acceptable by council's engineer from the Boyle Street intersection past the access to lot 28, with a condition that the transfer of ownership be subject to the development application for the community housing units being approved. My amendment.
Thank you. Miss Murray, did you
Yes.
get all that? Excellent.
Just a query.
Councillors, I will note now that I will need some advice with regards to how to handle this now, because it's an amendment.
Need a seconder.
I need a seconder for the amended motion before we can discuss it, I believe.
And the approval of the mover.
And the Councillor Breeny and Councillor Robinson moved the motion, and Councillor Arnold has now just put up an amendment which reads...
So that can't be seconded by Breeny, Councillor Breeny or Councillor Robinson.
Can't be.
Do we have to put the other motion? Do we have to put, that was my question, do we have to put the other motion first? No, we don't, okay.
Can I?
Councillor Browning has seconded it, the amended motion. So Councillor Arnold has moved an amended motion, and Councillor Browning has seconded that amended motion. Now, I'll put a discussion. Right, sorry, I do apologise, councillors, this is very convoluted and it's one of my first efforts. So, Councillor Arnold, do you wish to speak to your amended motion?
Please,
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. It's really only a matter of process, because to to rescind or overturn a motion, there can't be an assumption made that the next process will happen. And that's why I was uncomfortable with having the line in the original recommendation, or in this amended recommendation, that said, being the land will be sold directly to the Director of Housing. As I said, it is just simply a matter of process. You can't rescind a motion within a motion, or you can't affirm a motion within a motion, to the best of my knowledge. So that's the only reason I'm suggesting an amendment to take that out, because it doesn't, the way the original motion reads, it assumes that Part 3 is going to be, or Part 3 is actually already resolved.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Councillor Browning, sorry. Did you wish to speak? No? Does anyone wish to speak for the motion, the amended motion? Anyone against it? So if that be the case...
Excuse me, Mayor, can
Yes,
I just
sorry.
ask for a point of direction? Having placed the original motion, why has that not been dealt with first? Rejected or accepted?
If I may,
Thank
Deputy
you,
Mayor.
Councillor Arnold.
Simply because you can amend any motion, a councillor can amend any motion, and then the process is that the amended motion is put. If the amended motion is passed, it then becomes the substantive motion. If the amended motion is lost, it reverts to the original motion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm... Councillor Bruni? Did you need any more? No, thank you.
It's fine.
So I'm going to put the amended motion by Councillor Arnold and Councillor Browning. So all those in favour of the amended motion? So the amended motion has now become the motion of council with regards to 8.3, because it's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Madam Deputy Mayor, if I can suggest, you do now have to put it as the substantive motion, so you just need to you will now put the motion.
I'll now put the motion, councillors. So all those in favour of the substantive motion? All those in favour? Yep. Carried unanimously. Thank you.
I believe that's the process.
Thank you for your assistance and guidance and...
Confusion, Madam Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. Now
So there is now point 3 of the recommendation to deal with. So can I have a motion? Councillor Churchill.
I'll move that council resolve to direct the General Manager to develop a contract with the Director of Housing Tasmania to sell lots in Spencer Street, CT 62 to 72 /55156 and CT 98 /55156 for an amount of $375,000.
So a seconder, Councillor Robinson. Discussion on that one, Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about it. Thank you, Mayor. This, to me, it has been quite a controversial project by anyone's standards. And that land's been sitting there for a long, long time, in my view, not doing very much. Housing is something that is very close to my heart. I just feel that the community have a right to have a roof over their head. And if we can do that by providing land on which there will be some affordable housing built that can accommodate a number of people, I think that's helping to do something that is actually not putting any immediate financial burden on us. And the way it's been structured, we will have cash in hand. You can argue about whether that's good value or bad value. I just think that the big outcome for me is that we're making this thing move forward. I've seen what Centre Care Evolve do. I've seen how good some of their previous developments are, and I would have faith that this development hopefully will be done as well as the others that I've seen. And I just think it's a big plus for our community and a big plus for everybody really. If we've got 19 houses I think it is, or 19 new units of accommodation, I think this is a really significant thing, and I'd be really proud if council were to get behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Councillor Robinson, do you wish to speak?
Only, Deputy Mayor, to concur with Councillor Churchill's comments. It's good to see the land being used, and I'm a big supporter of public housing as well. There's certainly a short supply of it in Tasmania, and I think for our community to have that developed up there, whether it be the right place or the wrong place, it's got to have a good benefit for our community.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I won't support the motion. I'm not confident the matter's been properly dealt with from the inception of the proposal. It's been a particularly confusing and controversial proposal. Confusing in that we were talking about one lot of land and then all of a sudden it changed to another, and there was community consultation on the first lot. There's been no community consultation on the second lot. I agree with Councillor Churchill and Councillor Robinson that public housing is incredibly important for our community, but it's also very important for our community to know that proper consultation and processes have been undertaken in the disposal of land.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against? That being said, I'll hand over to Councillor Churchill to close debate.
Thank you, Mayor. Acting Mayor, sorry. I just think we're beyond the process by now. It's the big picture we've got to look at. We need this. Community needs this. We've got to do our little bit, and it's a little bit in state terms. It's minuscule in national terms, but it's something that we can do. We can put some roofs over some people's heads that they can perhaps afford to live in. And there's a lot of other benefits around this. These aren't just houses where people have put into them and forgotten. They're put in there and they are supported. There's processes for it. This, to me, can only have good outcomes, even if the process has been flawed. And if the process has been flawed, happy to see someone put up the reasons why and move against it if they want to do that. But I can see an outcome here that is the sort of thing that I think those of us that have real concerns for community should support. Thank you.
Thank you. That being said, now I will put the motion for part 3 of the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Arnold. So it's Councillor Breeny, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Browning, Councillor Churchill, Councillor Simons and myself as being for, and Councillor Arnold as against. Thank you, councillors. It's been a difficult one. So moving now on to 8.5, revised budget I'm reading the wrong numbers. 8.4, revised budget 2021/22, and there is a recommendation on page 67. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Robinson.
I move that Council approve the revised budget 21/22 as presented in the attachments.
A seconder for that motion. Councillor Arnold. Councillor Robinson, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Only briefly, Deputy Mayor. It appears that there's been a perceived need to modify the budget slightly, given some changes in the cash position and capital works programs. So I'm fully supportive of the revised budget.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
No, thank you. I think it was a good report, and I don't see any reason not to support it.
Thank you. General Manager would just like to say something?
Just, although Mr Murray can't make any comment, but just in regards to question earlier on, under the budget implications, I think that number one there may answer a lot of what you questioned about, but happy to have a discussion with you afterwards.
Thank you. Councillor Breeny.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I would just have a general question for the officer responsible in relation to the budget implications on page 66. I presume 1 to 6. I can't see any others. Is that the extent of the changes? It says the following changes to the budget have been included. Is that the only inclusions? That's my question.
Ms Blaine?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? Oh, not from the floor, from councillors? No. That being said, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. So we'll move now on to notices of motion number 9, which there are nil. Number 10 is petitions. There are nil. Number 11, questions from councillors. There are nil questions on notice by councillors. And number 11.2, questions without notice by councillors. Do we have Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I quote from the message from the General Manager in the latest edition of C-Speak. Glamorgan Spring Bay Council is proud to be associated with volunteer groups and is committed to providing ongoing support. Thank you from us. If that is true, can the General Manager please explain to the Spring Bay Suicide Prevention Network why their request for printing of 80 copies of the service sheet for their annual remembrance service was denied on the basis that staff workload did not allow them to print it? The annual remembrance service is something which is specific to the mental health and wellbeing of our community, and it was the perfect opportunity for Council to have generated some renewed goodwill in the community. It's probably very timely to mention Foundation 2 in our strategic plan, part of which states support and facilitate community events that promote community health and wellbeing. In terms of affording the staff workload, this message was conveyed to the Spring Bay Suicide Prevention Network in an email that would have taken more time to compose, denying them the support, than the time taken to actually print the sheets. So could the General Manager please explain to me how this would have affected staff workload, and going forward, will this council provide ongoing support to volunteer groups?
Thank you. Mr General Manager?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Madam Mayor. The Council receives, outside of the formal request that you consider here in this forum for community assistance, a significant amount of assistance right across the board. And the Suicide Prevention Network is just one of them. We do have to consider, and I'm not making any light of the fact that all of these community groups and volunteer associations are extremely important, but the fact remains that we cannot, as an organisation, facilitate each and every request that we do get for in-kind assistance. I spoke to an officer at the time who I thought could assist with this, but it wasn't just as simple as taking the same amount of time as an email would take. It was a bit more than that, and made the decision that unfortunately we couldn't assist in this instance. But I'll stand by my comments in the C-Speak. Certainly we remain committed to supporting volunteer groups and recognise the value that they provide. It's simply impossible for Council as an organisation to accommodate every single request for in-kind support with the resources that we have at our disposal.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else, any other councillor have a question without notice? Councillor Breeny.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is to the General Manager, I think. I'm just aware that in my position as Chair of the Committee of the Tribunal Hall, we recently received a resignation from a long-serving member who was for reasons, certainly personal reasons, had nothing to do with the function of the committee, which apparently is functioning wonderfully well as far as I'm concerned. But I did note that there was a question raised as to the protocols of people resigning from that committee, considering it's an S24 committee. Can you advise me of what is required, considering that there is the possibility that the current chair will be asked to be resigning on the basis of the fact that the committee is functioning so well, they don't need as many members, and the problem and the complication is that it is a councillor myself, and I'll be stepping down as chair of that committee. Is there a protocol that has to be followed to make sure it's done properly, since we're approved by council as members of those S24 committees? Is there a requirement to follow in relation to resignation from that committee?
Through you, Madam Mayor, any changes to a Section 24 committee, given that it's a committee, as you correctly point out, appointed by council under the Local Government Act, any changes in the committee makeup, resignations, etc., should come back to council for approval. So there should be a formal process around that.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, the fact that there are two people resigning from the committee is not a reflection of the committee in any way. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The committee members feel that it is functioning in such a positive way that the fact that there are 7 members is not necessarily a requirement, and that all of us are agreed that it can function really well without the people involved, even though we will miss them both.
Madam Mayor, this, just to follow on from what Councillor Brini has said there, this calendar year just finished on us, and I had mentioned this to council before. It was the intention to undertake a review of all the Section 24 committees of council, work with those committees to revisit the original terms of reference that were set up for those committees, and in that way sort of ask ourselves those sorts of questions around, you know, the functionality, how we operating now as opposed to 10 years ago, perhaps when we were set up, etc., etc. Anyway, the year got away, and that didn't happen, as you know, but certainly it is still on the radar, so to speak, to undertake next year, work with council and the respective committees to do a complete revision. I think it's a long time coming that we do that.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors, please? No? Okay, so we go now to item 12, closed session. In accordance with the requirements of Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, I am to declare the meeting closed to the public in order to discuss the following matters. Item 1, minutes of closed session, ordinary meeting held on 23rd of November 2021. Item 2, Australia Day Awards. Item 3, financial hardship application. And item 4 is commercial arrangements at Tribunna Marina. Can I please have a motion to move into confidential? Councillor Arnold?
Thank you. I move council moves into closed session at 3 p.m.
Seconder for that motion, Councillor Brini. All those in favour? Thank you very much. It's unanimous. So we'll now move into... Yeah. Thank you, Mr Murray, for attending today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr Head, for attending today. So what was 3 p.m, wasn't it?